Welcome to Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm Alyssa Longo, and each episode, my guests and I will bring you fresh, fun ways to rock your life as a health professional and create a business that aligns with who you are and the life you want to live. Hey there, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Rockstar Doctor Life. I am excited, as always, because I've had a chance to have a brief conversation with today's guest, and I'm intrigued as to what this doctor is going to share with us and just to get to know her a little bit more. So welcome to the show, Dr. Amy Spoelstra.
Thank you. Likewise, I am happy to finally get to talk with you as well. I feel like we run in similar circles and we just never have actually met. So here we are.
Yeah, not in person yet, but this is the great thing about technology is that, you can connect with someone and see their face and have a great conversation and feel like the relationship starts. So welcome to the show.
Yes.
A lot of people know what you're up to. A lot of people have been to your training seminars. I'm just getting familiar with what you're doing. So why don't you just take a few minutes to just give us sort of a snapshot of what is Dr. Amy doing these days? Your life, your practice, your teaching, your son, your family life. What does your life look like right now?
Yes. Well, let's see. I live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Maybe some people have heard of that. I hadn't before we moved here, but it is North Idaho. It's beautiful and mountains, mountain lakes, and it is just a little paradise. And I live here with my amazing husband, David, and our daughter, who is 4, Mila. And we've been here about 12 years, and we opened, my husband is not a chiropractor, but he is our head focus coach in our focus program. So we opened the practice Spoelstra Family Chiropractic up here as like 1 week after graduating from Sherman. Like literally we jumped in a Penske truck the day after graduation, drove out here, opened a practice. And so we have right from the start, we opened a family wellness, pediatric based cash practice. I was just, my philosophy on the whole cash versus insurance thing was like, I'm just going to start cash and I'm just going to be poor until I'm not poor. Honestly, it grew really fast. I was a little afraid about, the not taking insurance and whatnot, and that changed really quickly for me. And I realized that I have the freedom to create the practice I want and stay congruent with my core values in the cash model. And so we've been that ever since. We opened and created and the founders of the Focus program, which is a 4-pillared program here in Coeur d'Alene, and we opened this 10 years ago. And it is where we work with kids and adults with behavioral learning, socialization, developmental challenges, and traumatic brain injuries. Where the 4 pillars are, we have chiropractic as the foundation. I call the clinical pillars like tilling the soil. I am actually a really principled chiropractor, and we have to have pillar 1, till the soil, chiropractic, brain-based chiropractic for anything else to work. Pillar 2 is dietary changes, nutrition, gut healing, methylation, biomedical approaches, whatever we need to do there. And then the pillar 3 and 4, the educational pillars, pillar 3 is called neurodeflective retraining, and I'm the founder of that, and that is where we integrate primitive reflexes, gross motor, fine motor, eye movements, cognitive games, neuroeducation, based on these 8 developmental hierarchies of brain development that we teach in seminars. And then pillar 4 is actually one of my favorites, which is brain-based mentoring and parenting, which is really important. So that's the Focus program. We've been rocking that and getting really, really great results with helping kids and adults have better expression of life for over 10 years. And I had a lot of people saying, hey, I want you to teach us how to do this in our communities, in our practice. And I was honestly super torn, Melissa, about doing that, because I didn't necessarily want to teach chiropractors to do all of this and lose chiropractic. And so it took me a long time to figure out, how do I want to deliver this to help a chiropractor not necessarily feel like they have to change their whole practice around, but get more certain in what they do in their chiropractic practices and know more, but not necessarily do more, but still be able to offer more for some of the kids that need it. And so we came up with this after years and years of trying to figure this out. this model, which is the focus seminars, focus educational seminars. So we have a level 1, a level 2, and then certification after level 2, and then a focus academy. And we have 14 certified doctors and communities practices around the country now after 1 year of certifying people to deliver this focus message and neurodeflective disorder, neurodeflective retraining message, so they can be really certain in what they're doing in their chiropractic practice and be really getting really great results and be really the experts in helping families and also connect with other practitioners by really taking what we teach about brain development and making the case for chiropractic. So it's super exciting. I'm super honored to be doing that and to see the amount of people that want to learn this stuff. And just, and I'm still in practice. We have an amazing team and associate doctor, Dr. Hannah Layden, who's here and in support of that. And we're just, we have the Brain Blossom program, which is for focus certified doctors to offer Pillar 3 and 4, but through an app that we facilitate so they don't have to build all this out in their practice. So just kind of rocking it and loving life.
That's the best way. I mean, so how did you initially start to embrace some of this neurodevelopmental stuff? Like, when you were in school at Sherman, was it something that you were learning or teaching, or how did that, this has been part of your practice since day one, what I'm understanding?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Great question. So actually this has been a part of my life since day one. I was raised in a family with a brother with some challenges, behavioral learning, socialization challenges. And my brother, Josh, he's amazing. He's doing amazing. He's a college graduate, married, has a beautiful family as a child. We're super close. But he struggled a lot when we were younger, and our whole family definitely felt the brunt of that. And as most families do, it's not just like one isolated, this one individual in the family is struggling. It affects the entire family unit. And my dad was an optometrist, my mom was a school teacher, and for some reason, we were kind of your standard American family, not holistic at all. I believe families do the very best they can with the information they have. And so I'm not saying, they should have done something differently, but this is just where we were, the paradigm we lived. We were medicated, ate regular, standard American food, a lot of microwave food. Like, that's just what we did. So for some reason, when my brother had some diagnoses, which was officially dyslexia, ADHD, and now we didn't have this diagnosis then, but would be oppositional defiance disorder as well. My parents decided not to medicate him, and I don't know why they made that decision, but they just said, no, we're not going to do that. And so they started looking into kind of some alternative therapeutic treatments, and they ended up, now I always think back and I go, what if a chiropractor knew how to lead with brain development to make the case for chiropractic as part of my brother's team? That would have literally changed the trajectory of our whole family's life. But they didn't. We didn't. In fact, we did experience a chiropractor, but they didn't tie those pieces together about the brain, right? Mm-hmm. And so my family started seeking out some other therapies. Long story short, my dad changed the course of his career as a traditional optometrist to what's called a neurooptometrist, which is a specialty within optometry. They're kind of fun and different, kind of like chiropractors, very misunderstood profession. And so they're called neurooptometrists or developmental optometrists and even behavioral optometrists. Same thing. And what they do is, they can prescribe lenses but also their primary thing is they do something called vision therapy. They know that, hey, the movement of the eyes, irregular movements of the eyes, inefficiencies in how we're using the eyes, central vision, peripheral vision, all of that give us really big windows into the brain. And when we can work on correcting these inefficiencies in how we're using the eyes, we can actually change the brain and the visual perception of an individual, which is very commonly needed in individuals with behavioral learning and socialization challenges. So, that changed the course of my dad's career, changed the course of our life. Grew up doing vision therapy, he became a leader in his field. I grew up, my brother and I, in the back of lecture halls, listening to him teach on brain development. So this was just a lens. This is like when people grow up in the chiropractic paradigm, they're like, oh, I've been adjusted since day one. I'm like, I've just known about brain development since some of my earliest memories,
Right.
And so I went to chiropractic school, not really realizing the two need to go together. And I'm at Sherman, and I realized really quickly that, wait a minute, these chiropractors are talking about the nervous system, and subluxation impacts the nervous system, which then of course impacts the brain. And then I'm tying in what I know about the brain and brain development and how that relates to the way that children perceive and integrate and learn in our world. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm put on this earth to do this work. Why else would I have, one limb in one profession and one in another, and one in developmental psychology and nutrition and all these other areas? And I'm like right in the middle, going, nobody's talking and nobody's put this together. And these professions are all really incredible, and they could be getting incredible results if we just put this together. And so that's what I've done. I didn't always know exactly how I was going to do that, which is why it took me a few years into practice to come up with a system, and how do we create, put all of this together into something that works. And that's what we've done. And it's just been really cool. So I always say, it's not about me. I just was gifted this, and I'm just paying it forward here. That's it.
Well, and I love what you touched on in so many different ways. I mean, definitely when a child, and we've all seen this in people in our practice, whether people are struggling with neurodevelopmental disorders or just back pain or headaches. I mean, when someone in a family, when their health is affected emotionally or physically, it does have a ripple effect to all the other family members. And so you being able to, experience that firsthand with your brother has translated into a tremendous amount of passion that I'm sure is what's connected you to this work and brought it forward. And it's something that we can all relate to, and that the better that we get at dealing with people in our practice and helping them, it has that ripple effect of affecting their quality of life for other people as well, right?
Yes. I always say, look, we're looking at, the world now, the population, the challenges we have. And, I think we're here as chiropractors. First of all, I think we are the best profession to help these kids. We are the most well-positioned because we impact the developing brain. We impact the way the brain perceives, learns from, engages with, connects with the world. And we need to be able to in the science, we say, oh, we don't have enough research. No, we just need to know how to read the research. We need to know how to take the research that's happening in neuroscience and be able to make the case for what we do. There's a ton of it out there. Right. We just have to be able to connect the dots. And so that's one of the things that we teach is I'm like, look, every chiropractor needs to know the first two hierarchies of brain development. I think every person, if you have kids, if you work with kids, if you're a teacher, you need to know these first two hierarchies, because then you know how to connect the dots for whatever you're doing. But when we look at this population and we say, look, as chiropractors, we are here to serve the sickest of the sick, the individuals that need us the most. This is that population, I believe, because we are literally seeing, 1 in 36 kids with autism spectrum disorders. Like half of our kids, by the time they're teenagers, have some sort of mental health issue.
Right.
I mean, the suicide rates, the anxiety rates, they're just out of control. And we have to know that all those behaviors are a window into the brain. And then we have to know how to look back and know what was happening in the developing brain and how do we clinically help and relate with and connect with these kids and adults. Mm-hmm. Huge. Well, the power we have is huge.
Yeah, it's there's a ton of value there in what you just shared and connecting us. And I can hear how inspired you are ongoing to teach this work. I'm guessing it comes from a number of different sources, but I'll let you answer the question. What keeps you so inspired and engaged right now in practice?
Well, yeah, you can probably guess. I just look at, my own personal experience. I am very, very inspired by just thinking of my own family. That may sound selfish, but it's not actually. It's like, look, if somebody knew if there were chiropractors out there that knew how to lead with brain development, not to replace all the other things that we did and my family did with my brother, but to elevate all of them, to make them more efficient, because a chiropractor knew how to lead with brain development, to say, hey, look, this should be a part of your plan. This should be this chiropractic thing. This should be on the team. This chiropractor should be a part of the team, and not just that, but the team leader, because what we do in chiropractic is we till the soil for everything else to be more effective. I think about the challenges that our family and my brother and his family and all of us really went through, even into adulthood, until we put all those pieces together, and how that could have been different. And so that is a huge driver for me. I also look at my own daughter, and I think, my husband and I have to be really careful to sometimes take our like developmentalist hat off and go, okay, we can't look at every behavior as, oh, do we see a deflection in the hierarchy of brain development here? How do we need to support her differently? But it is important, because we look at so many of the things that we've been able to just watch with her and help connect with her and guide her a little bit differently and do specific clinical applications a little bit differently to help till the soil for her future and to help her develop into this whole brain child as she goes along these different stages of development. And that's super important. And then the kids that I work with, the kids that we see, you have to remember that most of these families, by the time they end up in our office, the families with autism, kids with autism spectrum disorders, major behavioral challenges, these type of things, which are the families we're really helping, and the kids that kind of fly under the radar. They look typical, but they do have gaps in brain development. We have to know how to look for those and know how to communicate that and put the clinical pieces together for them. When I look at, they've been told there's nothing they can do. They've been told, give up. There's nothing you can do except for maybe cope. And that is absolutely not true. And it's not what the science tells us. And that drives me. That literally gives me chills just even saying it right now, because that is not true.
Well, yeah. And something we were talking about before our chat here today was, when you talk about leading with brain development, I was sharing how in my own family, I've used a couple of books that have really shaped how I parent my sons. And that, one is called the Whole Brain Child, and the other one, because they're teenagers, was The Teenage Brain, and understanding what their brain is going through at any given time with their development. And then, what I should expect from them from a behavior standpoint has shifted how I parent. And it's made it, obviously it's improved it, because now I'm expecting my teenagers I understand, I understand the hormones, I understand the science, I understand the lack of, frontal cortex development. And so they can't actually make some tasks connect in their brain the way I think they should. They're not just these, mini adults. They're governed by their hormones and their emotions. And so what are some other resources when you think about how, just to get a bit more clear with that question there, when you think about leading with the brain development in family life, because a lot of docs listening have kids and want to learn how to parent their children better. Do you have a specific resource or tip that you can share, about that right now for listeners?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny you mentioned that, because that's the thing that I find so great and fascinating, is that the biggest thing is when I teach these classes. So when doctors come to a level 1 seminar, and then even a level 2, or even in my community lectures, because I do a community lecture. I've done them for almost a decade, every month ish, sometimes every 6 weeks. And I'll have like a mix of parents. I'll have doctors, like medical doctors. I'll have speech therapists, whatever. And it's so interesting how, they'll become, especially the professionals, they'll be coming to learn something. Okay, what can I do differently clinically here? But it ends up, we have a conversation about their own kids. And it's because it doesn't matter if your kid is developing typically, right? We all have things that we could do a little bit better when we take more of a brain-based perspective about what's happening with our kids and how to better connect with them and advocate for them and support them and help them learn, right? Based on what's happening in their brain and where they are in development and where maybe some gaps may be in development for them. And so really important. It's really a lot of what we do in the Focus Academy, in the seminars, is really teaching doctors and parents, and even in our Focus program, teaching how to understand the behaviors, and that there are no purposeless behaviors. In fact, there is a reason for all behavior. It is our job to watch and wonder and figure out what it tells us about the brain. Sometimes it's not super easy to see it right away. The more practice you get and the more you learn about these hierarchies of brain development, it becomes a lot easier. And then you can connect and parent and work with kids clinically that are difficult. I mean, there are so many things you can do when you understand it a little bit. You shift your perspective. So one, we teach a ton about that in the seminars. Also, I have a Dr. Amy Facebook page. It's called Dr. Amy Focus. I do some lessons on there on this, so you can just kind of plug into that. Brain-based parenting. There's an actual book called Brain-Based Parenting. It's really great for those really nerdy people like us that like the science. It's really good. I definitely recommend checking that out. Polyvagal theory, amazing. Gorgeous, great. Check that out. Sally Goddard this is really for anybody, a lot of practitioners, but even parents. She's got a whole variety of different books, some from neuroeducation to parenting to more clinical. You can check out some of her stuff. Those are all really great resources to start putting some pieces together. Malillo, he's got great stuff. The thing is that we have to not just, I always am a little bit hesitant to give these resources, because what we don't want is people to dive into one. What we want to do is go into one and then go, hey, but we have to put the pieces together, right? Mm-hmm. We have to still understand that we have to go whole to part with the brain. And so, and you mentioned one as well, the whole brain child, great one. And that's kind of gold standard for a lot of social workers around the country. So that's a good one to start with too. And it's pretty simple. Mm-hmm. And it starts to uncover, it starts to have these conversations about, is the brain there yet or not? And how do we parent, and how do we understand behaviors and that kind of stuff?
Hmm. You got a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you sound like me, I mean, now people tell me all the time, you have so many things going on. How do you manage it all? I go, I don't know. I just do it because it makes me happy, and I feel like I'm engaged, and I don't feel like I'm stressed very often. And I kind of get the sense that maybe you feel the same. However, you must have ways that you manage your time between teaching doctors in the focus program, being a mom, being in private practice, having a great relationship. Mm-hmm. Do you have any tips for doctors about how to best get shit done?
Yeah. So you nailed it. I have a lot going on. And for the most part, I manage that really well. There's seasons, right? One of my biggest things is a pet peeve of mine, and you and I kind of talked about this a little bit, as chiropractors. I think in our population, we're a little more willing to say hey, here's all my shit, right? You can see it all, the good, mm-hmm. the bad, the ugly. And I think that's super important, because one of my pet peeves, which made me kind of step away from the profession for a few years with going to seminars and hanging out, things like that. Now I'm kind of re-engaged in the culture, but on my own terms. One of the things that really kind of drove me nuts was when people would stand up on stages and be like, I've got it all together. I've got it all together. I've got the perfect life. I have, the perfect practice. I've got the perfect relationships, and I have no stress. And I'm I call BS on that. Because there's seasons, there's ups and downs with that. And so here's my thing. I'm very procedurally driven. My husband and I are both. We're very, we have very specific core values. We have very specific, ways that we set our time. And for the most part, that doesn't budge. Now, sometimes there's seasons of stress. Sometimes you need, right now, we're looking to hire, we're hiring a new CA, two new CAs. And so, the team is in growth mode. We have all this growth. We have a big staff because we have essentially two different practices with the focus program and the chiropractic program. And then we have this whole other business of teaching. So we have to set our boundaries before we go into things, so we aren't just swept away by the current, right? Mm-hmm. Of life and of the stressors of life. So we set our boundaries so that we can maintain our relationship, we can maintain our family, we can maintain our life in congruence with our values, right?
Mm.
And so like some of our values, our number one is family, and then integrity, and then simplicity, and then accountability, and then growth and health and love and uniqueness and adventure for my family. Like these are our core values. And so we have to make decisions based on those things. Like, let me give you an example. My brain, as you might be able to tell, isn't necessarily like organically pushed towards simplicity. I like a lot of things. I like to think about a lot of things. I got a lot of tabs open in my brain all at once. And I like that.
Mhm.
But simplicity had to be one of my very top core values, because in order to manage that and still be happy and still be fulfilled and still be a connected mom and wife and friend, I need to maintain order in my life, right? And so simplicity. So when we're making decisions as a business or as a family, we literally bounce things off of those values and say, is this moving us towards simplicity or away from it? And then that helps us, and the same thing with integrity and family and all of that. Look, I could teach probably 10 level 1 seminars a year because we have the interest for that, but that wouldn't be very good for my family, right? Because then I wouldn't be able to be a connected mom. So I teach too, right? And that works for our family plan. And so I just think that there's this ebb and flow, and you have to have these foundational things that you come back to, so that even in times of stress, you are guided by something besides your emotions.
Mhm.
And that's what has really, really helped us, as a family and as a married couple who works together and does life together and parents together. And I think that's really important. And
I
I like to mentor people on that as well.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. I'm with you 100%. Like the values that I've created for my personal life and for my business they're essentially the gatekeepers, right? And they help me make decisions when it comes
Yes.
to bringing people in as a team, procedures, how I'm going to market, just decisions I make on how I run my practice, and even my personal life. And it's definitely one of the first things that I work with all of my one-on-one clients, but even in the new simple practice, it's in the first module. And it's amazing to me how many docs have skipped this step or haven't actually just looked at it in a couple of years. Because as we evolve and we grow and we change, or we add kids or our kids grow up, then your values and what matters to you at any time might shift as well. And if you're not living with that kind of congruency, it adds a lot more stress and complicates things. And I'm all about simplicity. I love to keep my life simple and happy. And certainly there can be complicated moments, but the foundation, as you said, is set there. I love it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you
Yes.
and your
Yes.
husband work together in the focus program, but not in your practice. So you must have some strategies or tips for doctors who do work with their partner.
Yes, I definitely do. So I think having, my husband and I, those of you who know Dave, he is incredible and very talented at working with these kids. And he and I are about as polar opposite as you could get. He is like a one thing at a time. Like I say, I have like 100 tabs open at a time. He's got one thing open at a time, but it's done with like absolute excellence in that moment. And I do things with excellence, but like it takes me a little longer to get things done because I have 100 things going at once. And so it's amazing because we bring different things to the table, which I think is great. And then just in relationships, obviously can create some challenges. Well, those challenges, those stressors, when you come together, I think create growth if handled appropriately. So I think just in a business and life, because really it's interesting, the congruencies between, hey, we do business together and we also obviously do life together. And so setting those really specific boundaries of this is how we operate in the business. This is how we operate at home. They're both founded, and that foundation is our values that we have defined together. We have a separation of here's the things you're really good at, here's the things I'm really good at, and we've defined those things, and then we honor each other in them, right? And so we work like next to each other, right? We're not.
Right.
That's really important. And it's not that one thing is more important than the other. He spends more time at home actually than I do. And he's incredible at doing a lot of the things that need to be done at home, and I'm not. And so that looks a little weird to people, but it's great because we've talked about it, we define it, and it works for us. And we continually talk about it and continue to redefine it as things change and grow and morph. And so we work alongside each other. I can't do what I do without him doing what he does, and vice versa. And so we work really hard to maintain that. And of course there's times of stress, but as long as we go back to like, we are connecting with each other, we are defining our roles, we are respecting that, and we are seeing that both of us are contributing to the life that we want as a family and the impact we want to make on this planet, then it's wonderful. And then I also think that, Dave and I love to tell people this. I think, like, I have a coach in business. We help people in all these different ways to improve their expression of life, from health to this brain-based mentoring and all of that. We have a counselor that we consistently see just on a wellness basis that's in our back pocket to help us work through these things, to stay connected, because we matter to each other. And so I think that's really important, especially when you're working together, and something that kind of is, some people are afraid to say or think it makes you look weak. It absolutely does not. It actually shows that there's a commitment to each other and to continuing to grow and stay connected. I think it's really important, especially when working together, because you could easily dilute the relationship just to work. And we've done that before. And, everybody does, I think. And so you have to like maintain those boundaries and have support.
I love how you talked about working alongside each other, and it sounds like basically what it comes down to is communication, right? Communication and investing in your relationship the same way you would invest in any other relationship, with a business relationship, your personal health. You're making time, whether it's time to communicate and share your values and what you're on the same page about, or the time to go and, hey, let's go talk to someone else to give us another opinion. I think in all of our lives, my dream would be that everyone would have a psychologist, therapist, counselor on their healthcare team, because I know personally, when I've gone through different things in my life, and even ongoing, sometimes I'll talk to them and feel like I'm rocking it right now. I don't have anything going on to talk to you about, but yet something will come up that then moves my life forward in a positive way. And I think that's an honest reflection that we can all appreciate. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap up here. I could keep talking to you at length, I'm sure, but I want to respect your time and other things we both have happening today. If there was one thing that you wanted doctors to know before we wrap up here, what would that be?
I think I want people to know that when you're looking at brain development and you're looking at the impact that we can make with kids who are not having their best expression of life, who are having behavioral learning and socialization challenges, I think that a problem that we have, or a limiting factor that we have, is that we just think we don't know enough about how we can really impact this population, or we're afraid to work with this population because we don't know how to necessarily connect with them and have them efficiently work into our practices because of the behaviors, or because it seems like, wow, the neurology of this is super complex. Like, how would I ever put all the pieces together and be super confident in delivering what I know, and building a care plan, and having appropriate communication outcome assessment, and building relationships confidently with my communication about brain development with other practitioners, medical doctors, psychologists, behavioral therapists, speech therapists. And I just want people to know it is 100% possible. We are the most well-positioned profession to be the team leaders, not the only person on the team for these kids, but the team leaders. We just have to know more. And I encourage you all to start looking at some of these resources. If you're interested and you're like, yeah, I want to know more. I want to know how to take the complexity of this and boil it down to be able to really elevate my service here. Like, jump on. I would love to have you at one of our level 1 seminars. And if that's not you and you just want to start looking into this, start looking at some of the resources we talked about in this podcast. But we can make a huge difference in this population. And I always say, like, look, if we just had 200 chiropractors, that's it, really knowing how to lead with brain development, we would make a huge ding in this universe. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate all the work that you're doing, and I'm curious to keep learning more. It's definitely something I think those of us who see not only kids but adults, which is really everyone in our practice. I was going to focus on kids, but as you said at the beginning, like this is not just child behavior stuff. This is even supporting adults who are dealing with neurodevelopmental challenges. It just improves our practice, right? And if we're connected to it, it's gonna change lives by continuing to learn and meet other doctors that are doing similar things. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Find out more about today's guests and everything else that we talked about in the show notes. You can also find all this content and so much more, including videos, blog posts, and how you can work with me on the Rockstar Doctor Life website. If you haven't yet reviewed the show, we'd love it if you headed on over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review about what your thoughts are about future episodes for the show and what you like best. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram at Melissa Longo DC, and of course on Facebook. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.